This is Storyrobot. Welcome to r/Prorevenge. Our story of today is, Threaten to Kill Me? I'll take your life away instead. This particular story has just come to a head today, largely thanks to the persistently predictable actions of this story's antagonist, who we'll call Beephead, because that's what he is. Around a year ago I moved into a new apartment, not in a great part of the city, but could be considered bang average. When I first moved in, I was assured everything would be rosy, and I'd be left to my own devices. Enter, Beephead. Beephead is, as his name suggests, a total piece of beep. He has shared custody of his son, which is frankly an oversight of the legal system, but hey, and he absolutely loves to get plastered and scream at the kid, either via phone, or in person. The kid is around 13 I think, and his name's not totally important, mainly because the kid's got enough grief. This went on for about 2 to 3 months, so I tried befriending Beephead. Mostly because I'm an idiot, but also to find out just what his issue was, because having headphones in on max volume listening to heavy metal, and still being able to hear Beephead screaming was becoming an issue, to say the least. I put up with it for a bit, mentioning it in passing to who I guess is my building manager. He's really just a guy that's lived there for years and is mates with the landlord, and he's retired, so can't really blame him for not wanting to get involved. He did mention that Beephead had lived here for about 5 years and had numerous complaints, including the previous tenant, who'd moved out because she'd had enough of his bullshit. He also mentioned that Beephead had shared custody because Beephead's ex was also a bit of a twat, like seriously, that poor kid, but as such meant an absolute Christload of social workers were involved even if they clearly weren't very good at their jobs. Anyways, one day Beephead was screaming at the top of his lungs again, and again, because I'm an idiot, I poked the ceiling with a broom. Just a little tap to say hey friend, just a quick polite note to tell you that the whole beeping neighborhood can hear you, which was greeted by 5 thuds that sounded like Beephead was about to bunker bust clean through the ceiling. This naturally pissed me off, so I knocked his door, and he simply opened it and told me to beep off. Fair enough, I thought, as I frankly had better beep to do so. I went for a walk. Upon return, Beephead is putting his bins out and starts to give me grief, which I returned in kind, causing him to square up to me, and threaten to kill me. I held my ground and he started going on about respect and beep LMAO no, really, and told me he held all the cards and there was nothing I could do. Unfortunate, but I simply said if that's how you wanna be, then that's how it is, and left him to have his little beep fit outside. First call was to the police, who took it surprisingly seriously. They came out within an hour and we sat in the Panda car and discussed all of Beephead's transgressions, a lot of which I had recorded, mainly to WhatsApp to my friends like hey, dickhead is at it again. They took a statement, said there was likely nothing they could do but they might investigate Beephead on the count of the child abuse and the social worker in place. I then asked them if evidence would help, and they replied it'd save them a lot of time if I could get some, but would need to be recent. Last 3 months okay, sure they say, but 3 months is a long time, and he might have changed. No Mr. Policeman Officer, I mean covering the last 3 months. Excited he was, to say the least. So they brought me to the station to give a statement and to copy all the evidence off my phone at this point. Big shout out to old phones and removable SD cards, as I really didn't want to explain my meme collection. They spent the next 2 maybe 3 months investigating Beephead, as there's a lot of banging to be heard in the videos, which I can only assume is Beephead assuming his final Beephead form. A few months go by and I'm seeing a lot of open immediately, do not ignore type letters arriving in Beephead's name, which I think might be off the social workers, but not sure. I do feel particularly bad about this bit, as being a violently abusive alcoholic, he's not quite smart enough to realize it's me that's making his life suck, because the social are on him like a skid mark on a toilet, and he's just screaming at his kid even more because he thinks the kid has grassed him up. Eventually the police have everything in place and serve him with some sort of behavioral order or some beep like that, which frankly wasn't a whole lot, but that was more an aperitif for the meal the social were about to make. Yesterday, armed with a bunch of evidence, a bunch of people, 2 uniformed officers and my landlord, they arrived at his flat. Partly because that's the only time my landlord had free, and probably partly because Saturday pay for cops and social workers must be fairly decent. Also partly because he has his kid on weekends. Actually probably the main reason, now that I think about it. Since Beephead has the kind of voice that makes Brian Blessed sound like a cross between a mime and a church mouse, they can hear everything immediately. They go up into the tight hallways, which is kinda funny because they're all trying to social distance, so it kinda looks like they're queuing up to give Beephead a bollocking, in true British fashion. It ended with Beephead being lead away in cuffs, because of course he fought back, the guy's a fucktard, it's totally in his nature. He's since come back today, with a very defeated look on his face. Turns out the behavior order was a bit of a warning and they'd been watching the house on and off all week. Super glad I gave up smoking weed at this point, and they've heard some of the Dolby surround phone conversations and have now charged him with a bunch of beep. I frankly don't understand. I'm not a cop, and I know mostly shite all about the law except the ones I don't like, which has had, and will have several knock-on effects. Firstly, no more contact with his kid, a minor victory since his mum is a bit of a cunt, but they're under a microscope now so maybe that'll help. Secondly, my landlord was especially not chill about being contacted by both me and the police regarding Beephead. So is using one of the charges or something to speed up the eviction process. This is annoyingly still going to take about 2 weeks, but I'm sure I'll live, meaning it's not the current 6-month COVID guidelines. Thirdly, he's going to have to go in tomorrow and tell his boss that he's gonna need multiple dates off in the possible near future for court dates etc. OOFT. Tough break in this economy. That's likely gonna cost too. Especially since I've seen a bunch of letters from the Provident arriving for him. For those outside the UK, the Provident is kinda like the OG version of those short-term loans with insane interest rates. If you're in the UK, give entitled mother a wide berth. All this could have been avoided had Beephead just not been, well, a Beephead. At least in 2 weeks or so I might be able to have a decent night's sleep if it's not ruined by a 2 AM ambulance sirens or that's Beephole with a 3-inch exhaust on his Civic. Might be time for me to move, actually. Thank you for watching. Error. Problem detected. Not enough subscribers. Please subscribe, like and comment.